Hello, this is Catherine Marie, and you are listening to Long COVID Real Talk podcast. I wanted to talk today about how long COVID affects our relationships and the reasons why it affects our relationships. I think all of the stuff I'm probably going to say you already know, but I'm hoping that maybe you can have your friends or family listen to this episode and it will kind of explain to them why you have been missing in action or MIA. So I think the worst thing that has to do with hanging out with friends and family is just the unknowing of how you're going to feel in the next 5 minutes or the next 5 hours or the next 5 days. It's really, really hard to plan. I think one of the most difficult things for me personally having long COVID is I used to pride myself on being very responsible and very, what's the word? Just being able to be counted on to do things and to be there. And just in the last week, I was not able to pick up my little one from school. I had to ask my husband to do it because I was not feeling well. And then another time I was late picking up from school because of long COVID related, long COVID related delays. So I think that like when you have long COVID, all you want to do is live a normal life, and your brain, while foggy sometimes, and while you feel, excuse me, your brain is foggy and you're just having a hard time processing and thinking or finding words that you're trying to say. All of that affects being able to make plans because you don't know how you're going to be feeling. And then on top of that, it's hard to know if doing something social is going to put you in bed for hours to days. It's really, really hard to know. We know from talking to each other in the Facebook support groups for long COVID, that sometimes we try to do radical rest, and that sometimes it seems to help and sometimes it seems to be about the same as when we don't do radical rest. And a lot of how we're trying to treat long COVID is anecdotal and based on what other people's experiences are instead of studies, just because there aren't a lot of studies out yet for treatment. And there also just seems to be a lack of understanding just among the general public and even healthcare professionals about what long COVID is and how to best support people with long COVID. So anyway, getting back to the social aspect of it, it's hard because you can be, for instance, for this podcast, I was really excited about having a couple of people on the podcast, and I was so excited about this. And then I had a flare, and I think it was related to another bug, like a GI bug that my little one may have brought home from daycare or from school. Excuse me, sorry. And it just really knocked me out for a week, over a week actually, and just losing all sense of movement or progression or momentum forward. And for instance, one of the holidays in the United States is coming up soon, one of the holiday weekends, and I was thinking, oh, should we have people over? How do I know if I'm going to be okay for that? What do I do if they come and I'm not okay? Usually when people come over, my body and my brain kind of rally, and then I'm able to seem normal while they're here. And then I just have to sleep for several hours to days afterwards. So on the bright side, I usually can keep the plans, but on the downside, I end up paying for it a lot. So the other thing is, in addition to just not knowing what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be feeling, it's just also the sense of feeling like you're flaking out on people. And it just feels really, really bad. I just desperately miss my old self in that I was so good at being responsible and following through on things that I said I was going to do. And now I feel like my body betrays me all the time. And I'm trying really hard to develop less of a antagonistic relationship with my body and try to have more of a symbiotic relationship, or some sort of, I don't know, just a positive, better relationship where instead of us being at odds, I'm trying to acknowledge the reality of what my body is going through, even though my brain is just so frustrated with the limitations that are now a regular part of my life. So, what else do I want to talk about? I'm not feeling that well today, so I'm kind of struggling to have my brain have a bunch of things. Usually I have a list in my head of what I'm trying to go over, but I'm having a hard time with the list right now. But I think for friends and family, I think that it's hard. It's really hard because, like my husband, he's lost his wife in a big way, because if he wants to go to the beach, or if he wants to go, play ball in the park, or go to the zoo, or something that involves a lot of travel or walking, it's really hard to know if I can go. And then it's really hard to know if I can manage the actual going, but also how it's going to be once I get back. So my husband is grieving the loss of doing lots of fun things together. Usually I was the person who planned everything and was always coming up with fun things to do and different festivals to go to and different places to explore. And he was always more than happy to come along with me. And now that I am more than I would like to be bedbound or homebound most of the time, it's hard because he ends up having to go a lot of places without me, which really is hard. It's just really hard because he's grieving the loss of me being able to be with him and going through life with him in the way that I was before. And I'm grieving just feeling alone and like I'm not able to be the kind of wife and friend that I want to. One of my best friends we talk on Marco Polo back and forth, and there have been so many times where I feel so bad because it takes me so long to respond. And I I just feel like a terrible friend. And I'm glad that she hasn't given up on me and that she continues to send me messages on Marco Polo and doesn't seem to mind if it takes me a while to respond. And that leads me into how it feels to be the mom of a small person who, has the mom, me, the mom, has long COVID. And I can't tell you how many times I feel completely helpless and powerless and just completely unable to be the kind of mom that I want to be. I always imagine myself being just kind of a mom version of who I was before, just, running around and exploring and doing all sorts of fun things. I love hiking. I love swimming. I love pretty much every action you can think of. I love to do. And it's just been so hard not being able to do much of anything. I mean, I struggle to even stand up for more than a few minutes because of POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where your heart rate just goes really fast when you stand up, and you get lightheaded and nauseous and get a headache, and you like start to tremor, and you just feel really, really sick, and you have to lay down, and it's relieved when you lay down, but it's no fun for a little person to have a mom who lays down all the time, It sucks, and it makes me feel really, really sad for her. And she sometimes will talk about long COVID, and she started, telling me that she's stronger than me, and that just, little things about, like, just referring to me as having an illness, like a chronic illness at this point. And it's just really hard to grasp, because sometimes I can pick her up now for a little while, but a lot of times I just feel really, really sick and I can't even pick her up. And I know that's really sad for her, because she loves when I pick her up, and she loves to have me, she loves rollerblading. So I have these little kid rollerblade things, and it's so much energy for me to get down on the ground and kneel and put on all of these rollerblades and protective equipment, and, then go outside and watch her while she goes around. And I always have to sit on the ground. I can't stand there like a normal parent. um, and if there are other parents outside, I still have to sit down on the ground near them. And it's always a little weird, and I always feel self-conscious. And when I go to pick her up at school, there are no chairs around outside her classroom, so I'll usually just sit down on the ground outside the classroom, which is just a weird thing for an adult to do, but I don't really know what else to do, because I feel like I'm too young to be pushing around a walker with a seat, Um, I don't know. It's just really hard to come to terms with this new reality, and to kind of reconcile what I am used to being able to do versus what I'm actually able to do right now. And that continues to affect all of my relationships in my life. Even my sister, who also has long COVID, who lives close by, compared to what we would be doing if we did not have long COVID, we almost never, we just don't see each other that much, because one or the other of us is usually not feeling well. And, it doesn't really affect our relationship because we are really, really close, but it still is frustrating to not be able to run over there and say hello, just because I need to see my sister and because I need to say hello. Just having to spend so much energy just to get into the car, on the days that I even can drive, and get over there. It just, all of these things has, all of these things have such a profound effect on relationships, and it ends up causing everyone to feel a little more lonely. My husband feels more lonely, I think, because he has to find other people to do things with. Because if it was up to me, we would be home the vast majority of the time. And a lot of our friends, they either stop asking to hang out, or my husband will go with my daughter, and then, I just stay home some of the time. So I'm trying to think of the bottom line here, like what I should be saying to sum it up, to help people. I think, and to help myself, because this is partly for myself that's all processing all of this out loud. So I think, excuse me, I think that it's important to accept the reality that your life has been drastically changed, and things that used to be nothing for you to do now take a tremendous amount of effort. It has affected your body, your mind, your spirit, your energy level. It's just, it's your emotions. It's just had a profound effect on everything in your life. So it's not surprising then that it would affect us in a way that would make us feel lonely and isolated from other people. And even though I love being on the Facebook group, the Facebook groups on, the long COVID Facebook support groups, I love being on there and I love feeling like I'm not the only one. But after a while, just scrolling and scrolling, it's like, it still feels impersonal, and it doesn't feel like there's much of a connection sometimes. And sometimes someone will comment on something and I'll think to myself, oh, there's an episode about that. And I'll post the episode, and then it'll get deleted because they say, oh, this is self-promotion. And I'm like, no, this is a free resource. It's just what I would say, what I would type out, except I just verbally said it instead. And I don't want to have to type it out every time, the same thing that I would have said. I don't know. So one of the things that I noticed in one of the Facebook groups is that they have some Zoom meetings, which I've never actually partaken in, but I think they're probably a good idea to do. And I really value my friendships with some other people who have long COVID, in real life, that I've talked to on the phone, or even people I've emailed that have sent me emails from the show. Those really help a lot. Like, they really help a lot to connect and to kind of give you a shot in the arm to continue, and to feel like you're not just this single isolated person in the middle of the world all by yourself, And I feel like there should be support groups for family and friends of people with long COVID too, because it's such a weird disease. It has so many weird functions and so many weird ways that it affects our lives. And I'm sure my husband doesn't enjoy going to everything without me. And I'm sure he doesn't like, he's said to me before that he feels like a lot of the weight of our family falls on him. And he's right. It's frustrating, because I always thought of myself as the person that ran the home, and now I try to, but I can't. consistently do that. So I'm constantly trying to find ways to delegate tasks in the home so that it doesn't all fall on him. But I think, just closing up here, I think that the best thing that we can do is, when we're feeling lonely, to just reach out to somebody for some sort of community. And I think that sometimes people with long COVID are the only people that understand what it's like to have long COVID. And friends and family who are still in your life and are trying their best to support you, I feel like that is a gift, because I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of people that I thought would support me not really. They kind of don't, like, they're just MIA. But I also just keep thinking, like, well, what would I expect from them? Like, what would I want them to do? And I think the one thing I just figured out the answer to this past week, when we were really sick. One of my husband's friends sent us some soup, and it was such a thoughtful gesture. And I just was so touched by that, because I've been sick for almost 2 years, and this was the first time that someone has brought us food. And I think it's such a basic need that people don't realize it. They don't realize how easy it is to support people who have long COVID by just bringing them a meal. Even if they just drop it off at the door, don't have to come in, whatever. But just these simple things. And also asking, what can I do to help? What can I do to help you today? Like, what do you need? Or, going to the store, do you want me to pick something up for you? I don't know how many other people with long COVID use Instacart and DoorDash, but I use them pretty much exclusively for my own shopping, because I don't care to spend the energy on shopping that could be used for something else when I can just order it from my phone. So anyway, I think that's about good for now. But thank you for listening. I hope you don't feel so alone. If you do feel alone, I hope you're able to reach out to somebody. And if you don't have anyone to reach out to me. My email is longcovidrealtalk@gmail.com. I love getting emails from people. I love getting reviews and ratings also on Apple, Spotify, whatever. Even if they're not a direct email to me, I read them as if they're an email to me, and it's really, really nice. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go take a nap now, but just try not to feel too lonely today. And if you're a family or friend of someone with long COVID, I hope that there are a few things that I mentioned that might help you figure out ways to support them better. Okay? All right. Take care.